Man, let's
You
talk
know.
about you growing up. I understand if I'm researching correctly, you were born in San Francisco. Is that right?
Yep. No, my parents lived in Marin County, actually. So essentially, what happened is they both moved independently to Los Angeles in
Right.
the mid '60s or whatever. Met, married, and were together a couple years. He was in Stone Country. He did the A&M album, Rock Salt Nails, and then in the midst of the experience with Warner Reprise doing the original Seven Bridges Road album, here I came. I think it kind of freaked him out. He was really having a belly full of the music industry and
Right.
their BS. Um, and that is when they decided to leave LA, move up the coast to San Francisco, the Bay Area, and he opened the music store, Amazing Grace Music, which he was running, for a few years until effectively, I think what happened was in about 1973 or so, maybe there's a little bit of a shift towards some serious negotiation with art what led to the RCA deal for him.
Yeah.
And that's when we moved over here. So I was a toddler. I have no memories of San Francisco other than, going back later, but as far as being there as a young child, my early memories are here in the Nashville area,
Right.
really.
And so, I mean, you moved quite young to a place called Leiper. Is it Leiper's Fork, Tennessee?
Leapers, it's pronounced Leapers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that sounds like a
Uh,
really small place.
oh, and it
Yeah.
was, it was just a little farming community outside of Franklin when we
Okay.
moved
So
there.
south of Nashville.
Um, yep,
Yeah.
and not not way far out, but
Sure.
back then it
Yeah.
felt farther out too. And so, yeah, no, for real. I mean, I remember one of our nearest neighbors was Mr. Curtis, and you'd see Mr. Curtis going by on his tractor,
Mhm.
going to different pastures or whatever that he owned sort of around our property, and it was very rural. um, and that is where I form my earliest memories is there, and
Was the music
just
business the impetus for the move up from out west for your folks or your dad?
I, they were still together at this point.
Okay.
They separate in Leapers Fork, so
Okay.
yeah. Like I said, I think there was at least some escalation in the negotiations with him and RCA that brought us over here.
Sure.
Um, I think my mother also was for it because she just didn't really want to raise a kid in San Francisco.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
don't
she
blame her
just,
one bit. Yeah.
yeah. And I mean, she's a little Midwest. She was born and raised in Oklahoma. I
Right.
mean, she was a little hippie girl. She was all into the stuff, but really, she just thought it was too much freedom as far as an environment to raise a child in. And probably ultimately, she's right. I mean, I feel like I had plenty of opportunity to push back against a lot of stuff being
Yeah.
raised in Nashville, and so here we are.
Well, for some of my regular listeners, if you guys haven't caught on yet, this is the son of Steve Young and Terry Newkirk, and
I
so
am.
this guy right here is songwriting royalty or Dynasty or whatever. Like, I mean, your parents were something else. Both of them were incredible, incredible musicians and songwriters. So, like growing up, I mean, you're in the Nashville area as a youngster as well. Both of your parents are pretty rock solid in the music business as well. They're working together a lot too on music, from what I understand. So, what are your musical memories like as a kind of a pre-adolescent? Like, what are you picking up musically at this point in your life?
Um, you know, it's funny. I mean, of course, I'm around a lot of these people that are,
Sure. Yeah.
I don't really have any idea, maybe necessarily that they're famous or how famous they are. Maybe with the exception of Waylon, I
Yeah.
understood a little bit. Yeah, he was pretty big, but like Towns was somebody that was around a little bit, not a whole lot. It was a lot of times me maybe answering the phone and he's looking
Wow.
for my dad and he'd
Yeah.
chit chat with me a second, but it was things like that. But there was Hank Riddle. I don't. He wrote some hit songs. He was a pretty good friend of Steve's, and Bob Campbell. I mean, there was, of course, the Heartworn Highways thing was pretty for real, and they really did hang out like that. I mean, that's all they were capturing was a somewhat typical get together, in the '70s with people like Steve Earle, Guy Clark, Towns. Towns was in Austin at that point, but he was a little bit back and forth,
Right.
here and there, and so you growing up around those people, you take a lot of it for granted, and I think part of what happened with me was right in that age range I was. I don't know. It was just there was a lot of like pretty cool rock starting to happen there in the early '80s, late '70s, early '80s. Rush,
Yeah.
AC/DC, and
Hmm.
some of this stuff, and some of that started pulling me a little bit. And you looked a little bit cooler with your friends if you're into that instead of the country stuff, especially at that time.
I
And
feel like there's always like
and
that rebellious nature too for the sons and daughters of songwriters from the '80s, right? Like,
I think part if I may,
sure.
I'm not trying to speak for anyone else, but I have noticed this pattern for sure in me and Justin Towns Earl and John Carter Cash and Dustin Welch. I mean, there's a lot of us who I think it seemed easier to try to forge a path in a different genre than
Absolutely.
try to contend with our parents'
Yeah.
shadows. And we almost to a man tried to escape into some hard rock to get away from it, and almost to a man came back to
Yep.
the family brand.
Hmm. I've noticed that, and just a kind of a smaller example. My friend Megan Barker, whose dad was Bobby
Mm,
Barker, of course, and
yeah,
she rebelled against that country music for a while. Moved out to Vegas to get away from it, and I mean, she's
yeah,
back making country music. So there you go. I mean, it definitely happens
yeah.
that way. I feel like you have to
It
have that
does.
separation from it, right, to kind of have the appreciation for it eventually.
Yeah, and I think what happened to me was I actually just told this story. Like I would literally remember being about 29 and pulling into my apartment on the local, current rock channel, and it was some super angry, screamy kind of rock song, and I just remember going, "What are you so mad about? I mean, I don't get this. Isn't for me
Yeah,
anymore. You know what I
yeah.
mean? This is just not for me
There are love
anymore."
songs in
And
screamo, man. I'm not kidding. There are actual ballads that
yeah,
they scream in.
I'm
Like,
sure. I know. I
yeah,
mean, I even when I liked hard rock though, and even
yeah,
I've always been a fan of melody and people who can actually sing.
sure,
Like
yeah,
that's sort of like I've always a little bit leaned more toward if I was going for some hard rock. I don't know, people like Queensryche maybe or King's X, Steven Wilson and the whole Porcupine Tree thing. I mean, those
yeah,
are some. Otherwise, I was always a little bit more of a classic rock dude. I like bands like Pink Floyd and or a
yeah.
little bit more contemporary. Dire Straits was a big one for me. Um,